I am very happy to introduce the first presenter of today, Dr. Mykola Borysiuk, PhD, distinguished professor at the School of Life Science at Huaiyin Normal University. Duckweed is a group of small aquatic plants with worldwide distribution and fastest biomass doubling among flowering plants. Used as model plants for unveiling basic biochemical and molecular principles in 50s, duckweed has recently attracted new interest from the scientific and business community because of its highly efficient biomass accumulation and huge potential for remediation of freshwater reservoir. In this lecture, Professor Borisjuk will share his experience of studying duckweeds biodiversity, responses to abiotic stresses, and highlight the prospects of duckweeds application for wastewater phytoremediation and green economy. So I welcome Professor Borisjuk to start his lecture.
Доброго ранку. Зараз вже після обід в Китаї. Я саме перше хочу подякувати комітету орієнтаційному за прекрасну організацію конференції і особливо Павлу Арданову за запрошення і за надання можливості презентувати нашу роботу. The title of my presentation is Duckweed, tiny aquatic plants with great potential for wastewater remediation and biomass usage. As you can see from this slides on the title, that's a water surface covered with something green. Definitely everybody has observed this in the environment by traveling around the cities or towns. And basically not many people are familiar with duckweed, and many regard it as basically it's algae, and which are detrimental for the environment and for their ponds and lakes, which is not easy to get rid of. However, when we did from the scientific point of view, duckweed is not just one species. It's a monocot flowering plants, which mostly propagate vegetatively, like actually yeast. You can see here these tiny plants. It's really very small. The size is from about 10 millimeter of the fronds. What's the name of this kind of leaf of these plants, and down to about 1 millimeter for the representatives of the Wolfia genus. So there are totally 36 species of duckweed, which are divided into 5 families: Iridella, Landolfia, Lemna, Wolfia, and Wolfia. As I thought, it's pretty often considered like a scourge, actually, and people are trying to get rid of it. And that is because of the really fast growth of this plant, which and this fast growth is due to a really efficient accumulation of the nutrients which are available in the water, and mostly that is different organic components and also the fertilizers. So washed out from the field. I will show the next slide. The species of duckweed are really cosmopolitan all around the world. So growing on both 5 continents except Antarctica. And here these dots actually represents the duckweed collected in the world collection, which are located at Rutgers University in New Jersey, in the US. And basically my interest in duckweed originated from managing this collection like 15 years ago at the laboratory of Eric Lem at Rutgers University. Just because of these features, the efficient consumption of nutrients from water and fast growth, which of course results in accumulation of big biomass. Like 15 years ago, duckweed, which was already in 60s and 70s, as was said in the, by Pavlo, was the major model plant, which was used to uncover the basic metabolic pathways in plants, like photosynthesis, synthesis of proteins, and some aspects, right? But like 15 years back, when it was the prices of fuel, so the prices were pretty high. So people started to look at the new source of energy. And so biofuel was considered like one of the solutions. And that when it became like a renaissance for duckweed, which Heidi stated 2 years ago in this publication in the Plant Cell, Return to the Lumnacia, duckweed as a model plant, the system, the model plant system is a genomics and genomic era, again authored by Eric Lem, who is the host of the duckweed collection in New Brunswick. Right, so biofuel, yeah, here I just present the graph of the publication in different areas using duckweed, and basically that was this paper was published in Plants, so earlier this year, and that's probably how Pavlo spotted me and invite for this presentation. And so as the wastewater remediation, its view was constantly like on the screen by using duckweed, and also so biofuel started to grow like around 2010. So and also feed and food, which are especially active now. Right, so let's talk about remediation of the water and pollution of our environment. So here is the map, the world map, with the most contaminated area, coastal area of the world ocean. Right, so of course related to the active agriculture practices around Europe, US, both coasts, and so mostly that is a fertilizer actually, right? So which are going from the field into the local water, reservoirs, and then rivers go to the coast. When the cost just for European Union was estimated around 320 billion per year. So it's not just environment, but also cost in the money, right? So, but with the increase of the population and growing, and need for food production, so which estimated to have to increase by 50% by 2030. The problem of agriculture runoff will, of course, only increase, not go away. And on top of this, of course, in our country, due to this terrible war, also the explosives will be added to this pollutants. In addition to fertilizers and manure and all other contaminants. So explosives are also pretty often nitrogen-based components. I will talk about this later. Right. So here is just a summary why to use duckweed for remediation of water. So as compared to water hyacinth and algae as another potential plant system for remediation of our reservoirs. So this different categories, growth rate is pretty high for all of this. That's why all these plants have been, algae have been chosen to work with. And nutrient uptakes, it's high for duckweed, high for algae, and medium for water hyacinth. As you can see, actually rooted to the bottom, right? So climate condition, wide variety, so cosmopolitan, tropical, warm, and coverage of the surface. So duckweed, as you can see here also in the previous slide, so can completely cover the surface, but it's dependent, of course, on the availability of the nutrients in this water, right? So water hyacinth partial coverage and algae are deep in the water, so no coverage basically. And very important that the duckweed, because it's like cover the surface, it's relatively easy and simple to harvest, right? So water hyacinth you have to root it out, and very difficult for algae, which basically makes the idea of using algae for bioremediation kind of not sustainable. Also, the composition of the biomass. So duckweed has high protein, high starch, and the water hyacinth mostly high fiber, and also pretty good composition in algae. Okay, and here is so the high yield. So that's it's just a comparative example of the yield of duckweed in comparison to some other biomass. So the bioenergy like for wheat, maize, and miscanthus, right, which are around 20 dry ton per hectare. And here you can see the numbers for different species of duck. Right, it could reach even 100 ton per hectare per year, but it's at the special conditions, right? But generally you can get probably 30, 40 tons of dry biomass. And also very efficient removal of nitrogen and phosphorus. So the remaining fertilizers. I did not mention that basically when regards to fertilizers, this terrestrial plants, crops, cannot consume more than about 40–50% of the input of fertilizers. Right? The rest, at least half of what we put into the field, are going to water. And basically, so duckweed could be like a guardian, so agent to recycle this. And here is just a very simple experiment I conducted at Rutgers like 10 years ago or something. So growing the duckweed on different types of wastewater for 10 days. And just applying some so colorful test and using tap water as a control. So after, so that is the beginning also. So it was here we estimated ammonia concentrations at the beginning. This is original wastewater, and this is the same water after 10-day cultivation with duckweed. Same with phosphate. Okay, so efficient removing of at least fertilizers and other contaminants. But what attracted actually interest and duckweed as a bio energy crop was the fact that duckweed under certain conditions can accumulate very high concentration of starch, which, as you know, probably it can be used to produce ethanol through the fermentation. And here you can see just a comparison of the slice through duckweed and potato, and stained with iodine, which can detect starch. So duckweed could be full of starch, which could be actually converted into ethanol. So even more probably than duckweed. So the concentration of starch could reach, like stated here, 45% of the dry weight. So just a general slide here. From 2010, right, showing the rise of production of biofuels. Here is bioethanol. So in Brazil was real leader during the time, and reaching like 50% of the whole gasoline consumed by their whole cars. So 50% of this fuel for cars was ethanol produced from sugar cane, right? Also, the US was growing pretty fast in this regard. And so basically that was the first generation of biofuel using sugar or starch from corn, wheat, or potato, but also at the time the technologies have been developed for like second generation biofuel using the biomass, the whole biomass. And also in this regard, so the advantage of duckweed was that it has very low concentration of lignin, which was a problem for such a biofuel crop like miscanthus or straw, which contains a lot of lignin, which is not easy to process and to reduce in the production of bioethanol. And so at that time, so it was optimistically estimated that by 2050, the percentage of the biofuel will reach like 25 of the whole production. Probably that was too optimistic, and now I think the wind and sun electricity replacing this. However, probably this biofuel will remain some niche in the whole picture of how we feed our cars and get energy. And so that's the basically very simple and probably clear image how we at the time were imagine how we will clean the water using duckweed, so by boiling them in a cheap way, and then harvesting and producing using the high starch duckweed varieties, and then ferment the starch and get the ethanol like a fuel. Now I think this tendency, this use of duckweed as a biofuel, as a source of biofuel, is replaced more of using duckweed as a feed for animals and even humans, and but also connected with phytoremediation. So duckweed is not about the starch only, but has a pretty good composition, and so many people believe that it can replace the soybean meal as a feed for animals and fish. Right here, just pretty favorable composition of the protein with good concentration of essential amino acids. So it's that we compare to some other species. All right, so and high protein duckweed to be produced. So with the protein reaching approximately 30–40% of dry weight, right? And it can be used as a feed, as I mentioned, for different farm animals and especially. Right, so duckweed is also traditionally used as food for humans in some countries, for example, like in Thailand, where it's called hanan or water eggs. So this is a woman collecting the 6 wolfram. So that's on the fingers, right? And also there are more modern applications. For example, this is Israeli company Green Onyx developed an apparatus, so like an incubator, which in which they supply light and the medium, sterile medium to grow duckweed, and because of the high rate of growth, just like during the 24 hours in the morning, so you seed it, and next morning you can have pretty green, healthy juice. So this company is still alive, right? It was started about 10 years as a startup, and now also expanding to building a pretty big incubator for producing duckweed biomass. So, and they call this again the welfare. They call it green caviar. And also in US, another example, Parabel company advertising the protein like healthier food for the humans, and probably it's already on the market. Yes, okay, so that was kind of a very long introduction about duckweed, but I think it was worth it. Because people not very much familiar with this tiny, hidden somewhere in water species. And in this second part of my talk, I will tell you about our studies, our own research on duckweed, which concentrated on biodiversity, genome structure and evolution, and nitrogen assimilation and responses to abiotic stresses, and also on genetic engineering, which I will not talk about, but basically what we are using the duckweed as a platform for producing edible vaccines and probably fortifying the biomass with 3 omega fatty acids. So this application was boosted also recently by the program, the German-Ukrainian program. So one of the German ministry has launched a program of establishing centers of excellence in Ukraine, and actually we applied with our program called Euro Duckweed and went through the first stage. And now that is a next stage is a collaboration of the Institute of Genetics in Datatheben and the Institute of Cell Biology and Genetic Engineering in Kiev. So where actually I did my PhD and I came home. And I will a little talk about our research. And it started with estimation of the biodiversity of duckweed in Ukraine. So unlike other, because of the very limited morphology, it's not that trivial to even identify the duckweed species. And by microscopy, by some characterization based on the morphological characteristics. That's why we basically use also some molecular approaches. But the stimulus to do that was basically almost lack of these Eastern European countries, including Ukraine, Belarus, and Baltic countries. These countries were not represented in the collection at Duckweeds University, which you can see here the numbers of the species which are stored at this collection, world collection, but Ukraine was missing from this, right? And Belarus. That's why, so we collected about 40 duckweed specimens during the period of 2016 to 2019 in different regions of Ukraine, so totally 40 specimens. And so we use molecular methods, barcoding using chloroplast DNA. And you can see here, that's actually, so probably if you are located in Kiev, that is just Rossievsky Lake. So just across from the hotel near. So you still can go there and see this duckweed probably. Right? And what we saw that, again, we use its method published in 2015 using the double barcodes. And what we found, so we found actually six different species of duckweed in Ukraine, so which are marked by green. This study was also a comparative study of the duckweeds in Ukraine and China, where basically my team was located since 2016. And yeah, and yellow are the species which are characteristic only for Ukraine, not China, and the green are the common for China. So 6 species have been identified. And then we also started to investigating how efficiently those different species consume the nitrogen. So nitrogen, different sources of nitrogen from wastewater. And you can see here that actually by the 4th day of cultivation in this wastewater, so pretty much a huge proportion of this excessive nitrogen is removed. The same was shown also for phosphates. But what was very interesting what we found is that duckweed, unlike other species which mostly use nitrate as a source of nitrogen, and usually the ammonia is kind of toxic for plants at certain level of concentration. However, duckweed preferred ammonia first, so consuming different species, so Pirovella, Lemna, another Lemna, first consumed ammonia. And then when ammonia is exhausted, then it starts to eat nitrate. So that's very interesting, actually, both theoretically and in practical applications, because the fact that when you have a fish pond, so fish produce a lot of waste which contain a high concentration of ammonia. So logically, of course, came the idea to connect this fish pond. It's especially spread well in China, in this part of China, in Jiangsu province. We have here a lot of lakes, a lot of ponds where the fish cultivated different species. But also in Europe, right? We are now collaborating with the University of Cork in Ireland, which like trying to build this circular economy system where you cultivate fish produce ammonia-rich waste, and then you grow duckweed, which will consume this ammonia, right? Produce biomass using sun and CO2, and the duckweed can use back as feed for this fish. So that's one of the practical application of duckweed, which I see a big potential. So we also spend some time and efforts on uncovering the molecular mechanisms of duckweed assimilation of these ammonia sources. So here's two recent papers on the dynamic of consumption of nitrate and ammonia, and on ammonia mitigating the toxic effect of the heavy metal manganese. So here is just a schematic scheme of how plants consume the nitrogen, mostly in form of nitrate, but which are converted by nitrate reductase converted to nitrate, and also ammonia. So it's not like clear what is transported here, but many genes are also known to participate in this pathway, and then these ions are transported into plastics, where you have this cycle with different enzymes. Right. So here is a link also to the theme of the conference. Right. So I have a list of explosives commonly used, and they are very heavy in nitrogen, right? So they are nitrogen based. So that is a formula, that's the names of them. So of course, people very inventive to get new and new stuff to kill other people, right? But basically, many of these compounds are rich in nitrogen, and when they are degraded, so some of these components are also dissolved in water, and they could be degraded by microorganisms, right? And the products of the degradation are nitrate, nitrate, and ammonia, exactly the components which duckweed gives, right? So that's probably a potential link to help clear the environment on the battlefields. So basically, also these components, like fertilizers, will end up in water, where probably duckweed can consume it, and also heavy metals. Here, I just demonstrate that when you grow duckweed on ammonia. So here you grow the duckweed in different media. That is just the concentration nitrate, and there's a mixture of nitrate and ammonia, right? And so that is a normal manganese concentration, and that is 50 times more. And you can see that ammonia actually makes these plants to survive much better, right? However, so manganese, or when duckweed are grown on nitrate, manganese pretty much kill the organism, make many other plants. So we look at the genes which are differentially expressed, and here the upregulated and downregulated genes. So that is the difference between duckweed grown on high manganese with nitrate, so this one, and here also high manganese versus low manganese, but grown on this media with ammonia. So you can see even at the molecular level, so the genes which are differentially expressed are much less in this situation compared to the so that's again more like general and complicated picture that shows the same. That is a transcriptome, so gene expressed. So for example here, so that is increasing expression. So this red, versus pretty natural when you have normal manganese, and here is a related manganese. And the same picture actually translated also, that is a so proteome. So the analysis of proteins, which has been done in collaboration with the Institute of Plant Genetics and Biotechnology in Nitra in Slovakia. So and now we actually pretty much involved in this research, trying to figure out what exactly genes are participating in these processes, and probably we can use somehow to modulate with them and make these plants even more resistant to manganese, and probably also other heavy metals. Because the mechanism could be pretty similar. Okay, and future perspectives. So this time is coming to the end. So what we are going to do in future? So we study molecular mechanisms, as I already told, metabolic engineer high biomass for high accumulation of proteins and fatty acids to increase the nutrient value of the biomass, and also active for cycling economy. That is most bioremediation. And here we will be happy actually to participate if there is some big program. So to use different plant systems to clear the environment. So we'll be happy to collaborate and discuss the opportunity. Okay, here is just the list of the people who mostly were participating in the was Anton Stepanenko, Guomin Chen, Lena Tищенко, Anton Peterson, and Eugene Cho. So that partially this work, mostly this work has been done in China and the normal university, but these people, Anton, Elena, and Anton, are now in Germany. So at IPK, and we closely cooperating and promoting this research with the aim probably to eventually transfer this expertise to Ukraine. And continue there. And our collaborators, IPK is mostly in the Schubert, who is a major collaborator on duckweed, and Mykola Borysiuk, and also our partners in Nitra, Maxim Danchenko and Olga Latnenko. And we keep collaboration with RECLAM at Duckweeds University and also at the Institute of Cell Biology and Genetic Engineering Bogdan Nordborn. And here, yeah, thank you very much. And it's a picture of the team, first in China, our lab, and this summer I was working like a visiting researcher at IPK, and that a group working at IPK. Thank you very much, and we'll be happy to answer questions if there are some.
Thank you very much, Mykola, for this wonderful presentation, and I'm very delighted to see the research at such a high level. So please unmute yourself and just ask your questions, if there are any. Maybe I will start. I mean that I have a very general question. That thank you very much for inviting Ukrainian collaborators. I just wonder what level, like if you could specify what kind of collaboration would you expect, because I see that you do quite fundamental research.
Definitely we are doing both fundamental research, but also trying to use duckweed again for phytoremediation, and also as probably the biomass as a feed for animals or fish. And actually, there are a couple of groups in Ukraine who are working in the same direction. One at the Huaiyin in Kiev and also in Zhytomyr. And yeah, I mean, if there is some estimation what kind of contamination as a result from this war exists, so we can maybe address these particular questions. So some like heavy contaminated places by explosives or by heavy metals. If other people, as I understand, many groups are working in this direction, so I can estimate this, so we can probably address the question of course, decontaminating water using duckweed. Because as I said, many of these components end up in the water reservoirs.
Thank you very much again for this wonderful presentation.